Good evening. Happy Shabbat. Welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. Guys, I got a question for you.
Yes.
We've been doing this a long time. Have you come across, either of you, any narrative in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms that applies to one person and only one person, and whatever it is that Yahweh is offering or expecting would not apply to anyone else?
No. It's a family offer.
And so if, for example, Yahweh approached Noah and said, this is the thing I want you to build this boat, and I'll give you the opportunity to do it. If there were 100 people out there that had separated from the local communities and were not religious and were responsive to Yahweh, would he have allowed 100 people to build boats?
Well, they might have all helped Noah.
Yeah. Yeah, or they could have done the same thing that Noah did.
Well, they could have, they could have. But it's more likely is all the benefits of being rescued would be applied to all of them. How it be done is irrelevant to me. But I mean, regardless of who builds the boat, but they would certainly be welcome on the boat. So
the only thing that I know of is the story of the covenant, where when Abraham said, I'll make you a deal here. What if we do this with Ishmael? And God said, no, we're not going to do it with Ishmael.
No, that was a no go.
Just a no.
That was an exclusion.
It was just that I'm establishing my covenant relationship. We're going to do it the way that I want to do it, which is I want you as husband and wife to come together as part of a marriage, and for you to conceive a child, and that's going to begin the genealogy towards the chosen people. And I want it to be that way. We're not going to commence this through slavery. But that's a pretty rare exception. So if let's just say, for example, the 91st Psalm. That's my favorite. That 91st Psalm is and maybe we'll do another program on it before long, because I just had to reread it again, or had the opportunity to reread it again, because I'm editing and re-editing observations. And as I was reading the 91st Psalm, there's every reason to concur that the 91st Psalm was written, Yahweh was telling Dowd, I'm going to do all these things for you. But would we have any reason to suspect that Yahweh wouldn't do everything in that letter, in fact, would like to do everything in the 91st Psalm for every member of his covenant family that was engaged in Yahweh's affairs?
No, that's the key word, too. He would like to. He offers that to you, certainly.
Yes. So, as we're facing more and more issue with the destruction of the economy and the breakdown of society, the lack of deprivation of freedoms, impending anarchy, chaos, and the deadly nature of this virus, if we are engaged in doing something that Yahweh wants done, which huge percentage of the covenant family are, every one of the promises of that 91st Psalm apply.
Absolutely.
So
counting on it.
So there is really no chance whatsoever that we're going to be shortchanged of life, or have this pandemic and its effects have a material negative effect on our families.
Yeah.
So I think that we can count on it so long as we're actively engaged in Yahweh's business. And so I think that is the answer, is that rather than dwell on all of the negativity associated with it, let's just claim the positivity. And we'll do a program maybe in a week or 2 weeks' time, again on the 91st Psalm. And that happens to be a good lead-in to this, which is the Yahshua, as Yahshua is specifically talking about. This is Yahshua 11. And Yahshua is speaking of this choder, this stem and what he wishes to accomplish with this stem. And the implement is not named. So I don't think there's any reason to suspect that all of the things that Yahweh, it says, my spirit is going to do on behalf of this individual, that Yahweh's spirit would do on behalf of every covenant member engaged in Yahweh's business.
That's fair.
So
that makes sense.
We should, when we go through this, I'm going to apply it to me, and Kirk, you should apply it to you. JB, you should personalize it to you, and everyone who is listening should personalize it, should look at, this is what Yahweh is willing to do for me, so long as I'm engaged in his business. Now, he is probably not going to provide the capacity to comprehend and teach nuclear biology. And he most certainly isn't going to do it if you're, making some component for military prowess.
Correct.
So, it's the spirit to comprehend and teach is going to be limited to the things that Yahweh wants us to comprehend, and once we comprehend, teach. So long as we view it that way, then I think every word of this applies to all of us. Now, we went over, and I'll just remind again, that there is a 0% chance that, as powerful as some of these offers are, that God is speaking of Dowd or Yahusha or anyone else that is of that ilk, because you would never speak of Dowd as a choder. A choder is a secondary stem, a branch, a sucker. Dowd is the main branch of the tree of lives. So he most certainly isn't a choder. And also, any time that Yahshua is speaking about Dowd, he has this really clever way of letting us know that he's speaking about Dowd.
He says this is about Dowd.
He said this is about Dowd. Like, in Yahshua 9, 2 chapters earlier, when he's making all these amazing claims. I mean, the stuff that we're reading here about the choder is romper room compared to what Yahshua 9, 6 and 7 have to say about Dowd. So we can clearly say that the kinds of things that are being said here, why they are magnificent, they're wonderful, they're empowering, they're enlightening, he's not talking about Dowd or Yosha. And I would go so far as to say the very things that we're going to go through this list that are spiritual benefits, they would not be appropriate for any one of Yah's prophets either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Yah's prophets had a keen understanding of what Yahweh was saying. That wasn't their job.
No.
There's really only 2 prophets of Yahweh that needed to understand every aspect of what God was saying. Moshe, because Dabarim is Moshe's interpretation of Yahweh's Torah, so it would be applicable to the people. So Moshe had to understand it, or he could not have provided us with his commentary, which is what Dabarim is. It's Moshe's commentary on the earlier parts of the Torah. And Dowd couldn't write all these soaring songs about how to study the Torah, how to interpret the Torah, how to capitalize on the Torah, if he didn't understand it. Correct. So those
or how to teach a choder.
Right, or how to teach a choder. Yeah, how to do, as I read Proverbs Mashal 14, it was how to be a choder 101, because God had the audacity to tell me that there was the guy that was going to make him relevant again and to present the truth about him so that the world begins to look at Dowd, not Yosha, as the Son of God and the Messiah, was a lowly goy, which must have just kicked the tar right out of Dowd. Says, "You've got to be kidding me."
You do have a sense of humor, don't you?
You are kidding me. Then at the very least, let me write here a Choder 101, and he called it, right. So he actually wrote an instruction manual, which is the only other use of Choder in the and everything. I mean, maybe even, I am certain that Yahshua read every one of Dowd's psalms, and so when Yahshua in the 11th chapter, he's had this soaring ode to Dowd in the 9th, and now what I think is happening here, because it's introduced again in the 53rd chapter. 53rd chapter of Yahshua is so stunning, and that the 53rd chapter is a chapter that Christians think speaks of their Jesus. And what it speaks of is the Passover lamb, and only the Passover lamb. So it speaks of Yosha as the Passover lamb and nothing more. The only thing that Christians don't attribute to Yosha is the one thing that Yahshua 53 talks about. And, Christians want to make him the Son of God. They want to make him virgin born. They want to make him God in the flesh. They want to make him the Messiah. They want to make him everything other than the Passover lamb. And what Yahshua 53 does is it presents him as the Passover lamb. And so to understand that, it actually begins by saying, who is it that has come to comprehend and understand who the three Zeroah are? Who are the Zeroah? And then, based upon that understanding, is willing to expound on it. And the reason that Yahshua is saying that, and the reason I think Yahshua is now inspired to say, okay, this is a really weird thing that we're seeing here. So we need to know how this is going to work, because Yahshua, to my thinking, is the second most prolific prophet. Now, I know that Moshe is called the greatest prophet, but he's called the greatest prophet up to that point. And there's not as many prophecies in Moshe's Torah as there are elsewhere. It's only prophet in the sense of he gives us history going back more than he gives us history going forward. And previous history is still part of prophecy. But Dowd is, I think, the most prolific of the prophets, because his prophecies are just so extraordinarily important as in terms of time. But if you just want to go through the scope, the only one that you would put next, I think the one you put next would be Yahshua. And poor Yahshua, he is this powerful, unbelievably effective prophet for Yahweh. And Yahweh is so pleased with him, he invites him up to heaven. And he's up in heaven. He gets to see Yahweh on his throne. This is an extraordinary, humbling experience for Yahshua. And Yahweh opens the door to heaven with Yahshua standing there. And Yahshua, I'm sure, is just full of excitement. He turns around to see, a throng of people outside the door that are going to want in and that have listened to what Yah has said through him. And it's going to be this wonderful, exciting experience. And there's no one there. Not a single person that wants admittance to Yahweh's home. Not one that listened to and capitalized on what Yahshua said during his lifetime. And Yahshua was devastated, and he immediately apologized to Yah for being ineffective and said, I'm so sorry that I have failed in this regard. And, of course, what Yahweh told him is, no. I invited you here because you're my guy. What you need to see is it's just about time. your message is still the message that is going to be the most effective at resonating with Yisrael and Yahudah and calling my people home, it's just about time. And there's going to come a time when, listen, I'm going to show you here. I've preserved a copy of your entire scroll. They're going to find it and at this time, 1950, and it's going to finally get published. And there's a guy, he's going to take it seriously and going to convey to our people
the whole world
exactly what you had to say. And they're going to listen, finally. At that time, they're going to listen. And we're going to open this door again, Yeshaya, and there are going to be thousands and thousands and thousands out there thanking you for doing what you've done. I think that's why Yeshaya 53 is introduced that way. And so now, in the midst of this, I'm sure Yeshaya said, okay, I mean, I get it. You're speaking through me, and I'm having no effect with these people. How in the world is this going to finally resonate at this time? And then Yahweh revealed to him what we're going to read right now in Yeshaya 11. This is how it happens. It was just a simple, insignificant stem, a choder, and this is all about the choder, but look what we can do with an insignificant stem. Look what Yahweh did with Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
Moshe is not Charleston Heston. I'm sorry, but he's not Charleston Heston. He was an 80-year-old, broken down, stuttering ex-con, on the lamb, tending sheep, and tending sheep out there in Arabia. God uses the least significant to do the most significant. So this begins the Spirit of Yahweh. Not the Spirit of Jesus, not the Spirit of Allah, not the Spirit of Hashem. So the first thing is, you better know who Yahweh is, or this doesn't apply. The Spirit of Yahweh will settle and remain on him. If the Spirit of Yahweh settles and remains on somebody, you think they're going to know his name?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy, I got a spirit just settled on me, and I wonder who that is. Spirit, identify yourself. The Spirit of Yahweh will settle and remain on him. Nuach al-Hu. She was placed on him. She energizes him. She restores him. She is in an alliance with him, dwelling and residing within him, never departing his abode, while she enriches the association and assures a most favorable outcome for him, enabling him to be composed and prevail no matter the challenge. And that's the key thing, enabling him to be composed and prevail no matter the challenge. Call, literally, genuinely, actually, perfect. This is for a limited period of time. Third person, feminine singular, and third person, masculine singular. Spirit is third person, feminine singular. The individual is third person, masculine singular. The Spirit of providing the capacity to comprehend and teach. This is chokmah, offering the mental aptitude and wisdom to instruct, comprehension and technical expertise to do what is required, to impart understanding and to educate. From chakam, the capacity to learn and ability to teach. This is actually a fairly technical term. Hebrew has probably a score of words for comprehend, understand, know, teach, aptitude. But this says that there's going to be a structure that is provided that enables this person to technically come up with a system that helps him comprehend the Word of God, and going to come up with a fairly technical approach to presenting it so that he can impart what he's come to understand. So this is education based upon evidence and reason with a fairly disciplined approach to both. So the capacity to comprehend and teach and enable understanding. Oh, I have crazy phone rang. I'm sorry. And enable understanding by making connections to reveal insights. So this is Binah. This happens to be in my 2 or 3, 4 or 5. I get so many favorite Hebrew words. If I say my top 2 or 3, it's very high on my list. And the reason I like Binah is that Binah actually explains what I was sharing long before I even knew that there was such a word as bien or binah. And that is that I've always felt that knowing was very important and that knowing was infinitely superior to believing. But there is something that is infinitely superior to knowing, and that's understanding. And that the way you go from knowing to understanding is by making connections, by finding the relationships between things. And so Binah is based on bien, which means to bring together, to make connections. So this is all about processing information in such a way that you're able to deduce a discerning judgment, conclusion, or conceptual understanding. Powerful concept. So it's the spirit of having the technical capacity to comprehend and then a disciplined approach to teaching, along with an ability to make the connections necessary to understand. Because once you understand, you can be an effective teacher. You can teach when you just know, but the value of your teaching is hugely impoverished if you simply know. Yeah. So Binah, facilitating the propensity to ponder and process information, to be perceptive by being discerning, discriminating and judgmental, making intellectual associations which lead to a comprehensive conceptual understanding, revealing how to react and respond to life situations after full and thoughtful consideration. It's from bien, making connections between things. Next is the spirit of advice and counsel, of etzah, of pertinent directions regarding how to respond appropriately, providing prudent consultation for based upon the purpose of the proposal, delivering effective mentoring on how to deliberate relevant decisions, and then engage. You can have the technical skill to know, and if you know, but you don't teach, your knowledge has very little value. It has merit to you, but to no one else. You can go the next step forward and make the connections to understand, and that knowledge now is very powerful and effective and enriching to you, but it also makes your teaching infinitely more useful. But both of those two things have limited utility until you can provide the kind of practical advice based on them as to what someone should do with them. So, I look at what we're doing, and I think that knowing is a good thing. But if I can't teach what I've come to know, then it has a marginal utility. And all chances are I'll just go and do something else because I want to be effective. So knowing, comprehending what you can teach is an objective. It's a filter to get rid of things that don't lead there. if something I'm learning constitutes understanding, then I want more of that. And things that I just learned that are just these factoids dangling out there, unrelated to anything that is important, only has value in that sometimes when you stumble on 4 or 5 facts that don't seem to tie to anything, you find yourself the following day saying, oh, now I get it. That's related to this. And all of a sudden you have a profound understanding of something subtle God said that you would have had no way of understanding otherwise. But the epitome of what we're trying to do is knowledge that enables us to teach based on understanding that encourages people, when we share it, to act and engage on the covenant, so that we're giving them practical advice as to what they should do with it, the advice and counsel on how to respond. That's the best of all. So this is a systematic approach to what's important when we're about learning more about what God has to say and then putting it all into context so that we can provide advice that enable people to respond appropriately. Because when we're telling all of the Israelites and Yehudim out there, Yahweh's calling you home and you need to listen because you don't have much time and things are going to get really bad, it's important to say, this is what you ought to do. There's 5 terms and conditions of the covenant. Act upon them. There's 7 annual meetings. Attend them.
Act. Yes.
These are the things you need to do. Yahweh has a name. It's easy to pronounce, and you ought to know it. Now, the next part of it just happens to be something that makes all of this work in the way Yahweh likes to engage. God is really bold. If you realize who he liked to work with and who his favorite person was, I don't think you'd find a person who was more bold than Dowd. Dowd's a man's man. I get flack from Leah from time to time when I look at all of these wimpy, Hadithic, Orthodox Jews and their little mourning outfits and their curly cues down the side of their head. And they don't work. They are so emasculated. They look so damn wimpy. You just look at them and you just get the creeps. I mean, it's, God, what didn't you get about being a man? Was there a third aisle that, women are over here, men are over here, and, well, you guys are kind of neutered? God doesn't like that. I look at them, I go, they give me the creeps. Well, first of all, I just hate religious dress-up. I hate religion, but I really hate religious dress-up. And what you find is that God likes men to be men, women to be women, men to be men. If you are a man, be bold. Heck, if you're a woman, be bold. Well, look at Ruth. She was bold. Look at Deborah. She was bold. Man, that woman could fight. Yeah. Look at Sarah. She was so bold, she laughed at God.
Laughed at Yahweh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's bold. You're telling God, hey, right.
Sure, pal.
After all this time, hey, look at me, I'm a wrinkled old prune, and I'm going to have a kid. Yeah, right. That's bold. It's being comfortable and being bold. And the next is the spirit of being emboldened and inspiring, of how to be a strong, courageous leader who is empowering, able to accomplish the mission and perform until it's complete, providing the aptitude and capability to confirm that which is true, offering the mental discipline to be unwavering, championing the cause with courage, character, and confidence, fighting to defend God's people and affirm their rights. The book, now it's 5 volumes of observations. While it has a little softer beginning now, the line's still there. It began with hate is a virtue. That's bold. Now,
Yeah.
now hate as a virtue appears on like page 3 of this, because I don't want the book to be, when it's finally published on our own sites, and it's to have the sites be brought down because someone says that hate is a virtue. You better bring this down. The book is hateful. I want to have some verbiage that says, let me tell you about the kind of hate that is appropriate. A righteous indignation. We ought to hate, those who are rapists and pedophiles. We ought to hate terrorism for the harm that it inflicts on innocent people. And we ought to respond with evidence and reason, using our words, not make it worse by getting down in the mud with them and using bullets and bombs. So it needs to be presented in context, but it's bold. We're bold on this program. God likes bold. Dowd was bold. I think, and it was Mike Beatty who has a slightly different timeline than my timeline, and Mike took the Masoretic text to put his together, and he came up with some really delicious conclusions. One was that rather than year 3,000 Yah, and mind you, year 1,000 Yah and 5,000 Yah are irrelevant. It's really, we're looking at year 0, 2,000, 4,000, and 6,000 Yah are the important years. But year 3,000, because it's right in the middle, because it is Dowd, is also interesting. He came to the conclusion that year 3,000 Yah wasn't when Dowd became the cornerstone of the temple. And I think he was the cornerstone of God's home the moment that God chose him and anointed him. So these two things could, in fact, correspond, because Dowd genuinely is the cornerstone of Yahweh's home. But he said that if you take the Masoretic text, year 3,000, Dowd is 8 years old, and that's the age when Yahweh chooses him, anoints him, and his spirit comes upon him. And 8 is the thing that runs through all of his things. Like, for example, using that timeline, Adam was 80. Yeah, Adam was 80 years old when he was expelled from the garden, using Mike's timeline. So expelled from the garden, still year 0, but Adam is 80 years old. 8 being infinity, and then he has meeting with the first introduction to Noah when Noah is 24 years old, when he's and again multiples of 8 when he first meets with Noah. But then year 3,000, Dowd is 8 years old. What's the first thing that, as you turn the page, Yahweh's had this big hoop-de-doo about, I'm going to choose the person. This is my person. Comes out of Bethlehem. I want you to anoint him, Mashiach, and my spirit has come upon him. What's the next chapter? And as you turn the page, and First Samuel, what's the next story? You guys know?
No.
Not off the top of my head.
He's 8 years old, and Israel is being terrified by the Philistines.
Oh, by
and the Philistines are now mocking them, because they have the 6 foot 6 inch man who was a giant among men at the time, because most men were like 5'3", 5'4", and they got the 6 foot 6 inch man, and he is blabbering all over the place, taunting Yahweh, taunting Yisrael, taunting Yehudem, and Dowd says, "Who in the world is this crude, loudmouth, uncircumcised Philistine, and who the hell does he think he is, bad-mouthing Yahweh?" And he grabs one stone, kills him. That's bold. 8 years old, goes against the giant of warriors, one stone, he's dead, and he says, now, this was significant. I hope you're paying attention. Talk about bold. When Dowd is being pursued by Shaul's demon possessed, Shaul's gotten to be off his rocker, and Dowd is being pursued by Shaul and the army. Twice, Dowd not only eludes them, but finds King Saul, King Shaul, and walks right in his room. He's carrying his sword, walks right in his room, and says, I'd really appreciate it if you'd stop trying to hunt me down and kill me. Listen, I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to do anything to you. I would just ask you to recognize I'm not out to get you. I could have killed you just a moment ago, but I'm not going to do that. And talked to him, and then left. That's bold.
That's brave, man. Yeah.
If you're the least bit cowardly or afraid, you're going to kill the person that's trying to kill you. Mm-hmm. If you're not, you're going to say, listen, this is really stupid what you're doing. Don't do this. And you're going to have the confidence to go in to confront him. And he did. And was also interesting is every time that Dowd was being pursued by Shaul, if there was a menacing foe trying to invade Israel, Dowd would say, excuse me, time out. I'm going to go and take care of that foe, and we'll return to worrying about me later. Dowd was bold. You read Dowd's Psalms. Man was bold. Dowd was so bold to say, Yahweh, I'm coming through the doorway of heaven, and you can't stop me because I'm carrying your Torah. That's bold.
I love that line, yeah.
I do too. Bold. Yahweh likes bold. And so it's the spirit of being emboldened and inspiring. One of the things that was so unique about what we have done from the beginning is that the hallmark of this research, this quest to know, to understand, to teach, to advise, the hallmark has been the insights. I don't know if there's 500 or 1,000, but there are many, many hundreds of unique insights in these books and that have been disclosed as part of these shows that have not been considered or known in 2,000 to 3,000 years.
Yeah. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. From the proper pronunciation of Yahweh's name, to the fact that the set-apart spirit has feminine characteristics and is our spiritual mother, to each of the 7 Moed Mikre, which are invitations to meet with God, have a specific purpose, with the first 4 of them being fulfilled in year 4,000 Yah, offering the 5 benefits of the covenant, and that there are 5 terms and conditions of the covenant. Yeah. That Yahweh is 7-dimensional, and the universe is 6 dimensions, and we're stuck in 3.5 of them. That the single most important person in human history is Dowd. He's the son of God, not Yosha. He was the son of man. That Dowd is the Messiah, not Yosha. Yosha is the Passover lamb. Dowd is the shepherd. Yosha is the lamb. Profoundly different, both profoundly important. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of insights from, for example, the timeline of what happened in year 0, what happened in year 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 6,000, when Yah's going to return. Why is he returning on Yom Kippurim? Why did we leave the garden, and why are we returning to the garden? What were the conditions in the garden, and why does Yahweh have to do the things he's going to do, ridding the world of religion and politics, so that we can enjoy the conditions again in the garden?
Well, I thought, why was Satan allowed in the garden? No one ever said that before.
Right. Yes, exactly. Why was he allowed in? And why was Towrah created? And what did Hasatan do that was then mimicked by Paul as he created his diversion?
Yeah, the little twist.
Yeah, right. How did Satan come to become the Lord of religion? Why should we see him in that role? There are so many profound insights that to say, well, this lowly choder somehow taught himself enough Hebrew that he read the Dead Sea Scrolls, and well, that's what he was able to deduce. Listen, I'm very careful to say that I'm not a prophet, because if being a prophet, you'd have to be inerrant. But this says that the Spirit of Yahweh is inspiring these insights. And, I don't think we've had a profound insight that we have shared that we've later had to say, oh, that's not right. I've made some mistakes, but it's never been one of the unique insights, these many hundreds of them, that we have deduced, that we've had to say, oh, that insight was wrong.
Can I just say too? There's some little things that we all benefit from. Those are some biggies, obviously. But for those of us who actually choose to try to translate as well and hear it for ourselves, just simple things like shamar, which does not mean obey, and you can prove it doesn't mean obey. You carefully consider, closely examine, and so forth. And things like yara, which we're coming to in a few minutes. So on this verse, means to revere. Yeah, it can mean it could be fear under a certain context,
right?
But you cannot love something that you fear. And Yahweh is talking about, and I looked up the letters on this one a little while ago, and how I don't know how you get an open hand reaching down to lift up someone who's carefully considering shamaring, if you wish, carefully considering Yahweh, the Almighty, the power, the authority. How you can get fear out of that, I don't know. I mean, you got to do some real twisting. So I mean, but those little things those are just gems, because they set the tone so that when you see it, you say that's not the way that he cannot be meaning that. That
right.
Is not
or for example, that shama, to hear and to listen,
to hear
does not mean obey, and there in fact there is no Hebrew word for obey. Or that Torah is based on yara, and it means source from which teaching, guidance, direction, and instruction flow.
Yes. Well,
and there is no law.
You got to throw in one other one, is Lord. You cannot be. That's Satan's title. You cannot be. He's not a Lord. He's a dad. He's a father. And the approach is with love, not with obeying me. I mean, no. Wow.
Yes.
So
yeah, exactly.
I know those are tiny, but boy, they add up when you start trying to translate, and you go, oh, okay, well, I get it now. Context, as JB likes to promote. Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of JB, there was a lot of background at JB's house there, so I just muted his mic. As soon as the background noise is over, JB, please come back. There we go.
Rain outside hitting the window.
That was really wow!
Great
Welcome to Texas. When it rains, everything's big in Texas, right?
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
I'll just mute when I'm not talking, though. That way it doesn't bother too much.
Wow, that is amazing, JB. Goodness.
Well, I thought you meant your
daughter playing kitchen or something. Yes. Yeah.
We got a thunderstorm rolling through.
Wow.
So next is the spirit of knowing and knowledge of Dayath, of recognizing where to look for answers, of acquiring information, of being aware of the evidence and being able to discern. What we have striven to do is to replace faith and belief with evidence and reason. We should be able to answer every important question with the evidence that can be deduced from Yahweh's testimony. Let's just keep it on a very high level. I think, JB, that is specifically why you're part of Yahweh's family. When you found that religion is something that God was opposed to, and that evidence and reason was what he was encouraging, then it played right to what you thought was appropriate. So it's the spirit of knowing and of knowledge.
Sense to me.
Yes, exactly. And that's what it's designed to do, is to make sense. And what does it all lead to? A respect and reverence for Yahweh.
Yes.
And and maybe for some that might sound, wait a minute, all of this profound stuff, and that's all we're getting is reverence and respect for you. What else is there?
Well, you might add all, but basically that's it. Yeah.
What else is there? And Yara is Yara is just fine. It's yes, an awesome nature, outstanding character, superlative ability, astonishing greatness. But that is really what it's all about. Yahweh wants us to respect him. Mm-hmm. And if you respect and revere him sufficiently, you'll want to learn from him. You want to do as he is instructing. You want to capitalize on what he is offering. You want to spend time with him.
Yeah.
So that is where all of this is leading, to a reverence and respect, not for Jesus, not for Allah, not for the Lord, not for Hashem, not for rabbis, not for priests, not for popes, not for a church, for Yahweh. Not for a Bible, not for a Quran, not for a Talmud, for Yahweh. So here we are. It's the Ruach of Yahweh. These are Yahweh's words, his message, his plan. This list begins and it concludes with Yahweh's name, because without it, nothing else matters. The Ruach of Chokmah, of mental aptitude and wisdom to instruct, the comprehension based on technical expertise to do what is required to impart understanding and educate, the capacity to comprehend. Everything we write, I've now realized that that observations is just over 3,000 pages. Coming home is over 1,500 pages. And if you look at the other books collectively, we're now at about 15,000 pages. That's why it's taking so long to do this current edit pass through everything. Every page of every book, every translation, every amplification, every insight, every comment is all designed for a singular purpose: to teach. What it's there for? We learn and we teach. Right. We learn, we teach.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
We learn, we teach. We listen, we share.
Yeah.
That is 15,000 pages and 7,000 shows. Listen, share, learn, teach. That's all it is. The formula hasn't changed from day one. Look at the words that Yahweh conveyed, translate them the most accurately and completely you can, then consider what he said and teach. Say, this is why this is important. This is what this means. This is how you apply this to your life. This is what it negates. This is what it supports. That's teaching. The Ruach of Banah, enabling understanding by making connections which reveal insights. That is the most effective way to teach. If we can teach in such a way that we make the kind of connections, for example, the connection between the 7 Moed Mikre and the terms of the covenant and the benefits of the covenant. When you make that connection and then you understand their purpose. The spirit of advice and counsel concerning pertinent directions regarding how to respond appropriately. It's all for naught if we don't know what to do. I was with a buddy of mine day before yesterday, and we were taking a walk. And And this person was saying, listen, I've listened to a lot of what you've had to say, and I'm implementing a bunch of it. For example, now I take the Shabbat off. I have it as a day to rest and reflect, and it's really has a really wonderful cadence in my life. But what I don't know yet, I need to know, how do I capitalize on all of this and become part of God's family that you keep talking about? And so, I gave him volume 1 of observations, which speaks of how to participate in the covenant. And we went through what its terms and conditions are. That is what we want to convey ultimately, is Yahweh is worth knowing. Yahweh has 5 terms and conditions of his covenant, and the first of those that we need to disassociate ourselves from the family of man, from our country, from the babble of religion and politics, from societal cultures, so that independent of those things, no longer allied with those things, no longer poisoned and confused by those things, we're capable of approaching Yahweh, of walking to him and becoming perfected by him, of coming to trust and rely upon him as opposed to relying on our government. We're not worried that our government has screwed up our economy and has deprived us of our freedoms, because we weren't relying on our government for our freedoms. We weren't relying on our government for our well-being. We weren't relying on our government to take care of us or to defend us. And so the government being wholly and completely unreliable and counterproductive is not a concern to us. The spirit of Gibborah. Now, this one is there's part of Gibborah that I have to say I love, because I like being blunt and bold and confident. It's one of the things I've enjoyed all of my life, and now to be bold and confident about Yahweh is just so perfect. It's just satisfying and enriching and empowering. It feels good. I love it. But did you notice that Gibborah is based on Gibbor, which is the term that is used throughout the Torah to speak of Dowd, strong warrior, confident, defending his people? Well, Gibborah is the feminine of it. So Gibborah is the sissified version of Dowd. So
you've never met a really strong woman, huh? Yeah, I think this through.
Okay, now that's just having fun with it. But the reason it's Gibborah is, guess where we're getting our strength? Set apart spirit.
Yeah,
Mom, yeah.
Yes,
set apart spirit.
Course,
she's feminine, and so the reason that it's Gibborah is that our strength is coming from the set apart spirit. She is the one that is empowering us. It is the spirit of Gibborah, and the spirit Ruach is
it's
feminine.
The Ruach Kodesh, yeah.
Yep. The Ruach Diath of recognizing where to look for answers. That's the key thing. We're looking for answers. And that is Yahweh's testimony is filled with answers. And the answers are what's so fun to find. That's the whole purpose of teaching, is to provide answers. And Dayath is knowing based upon recognizing where to find the relevant information that can lead to knowledge with evidence and reason leading to answers. And it's the Ruach of Yirah Yahweh, of respecting and revering Yahweh. That's where it takes us. Now, you'll notice that in this list, so that's a list of the 7 things that the Spirit is going to provide the choders of the world. So all of us who are insignificant stems, by the way, a choder is about the size of a pencil. It's about the size of the sucker that is comprised of a choder. And the Spirit is moving this pencil in mighty ways, but there are a number of things that Yahowah did not say.
Didn't make the list.
Right, didn't make the list. That's why, when Christians have this conniption fit about homosexuality, I say, wait a minute, homosexuality didn't make the top 10 list.
Didn't make the big tablets, no.
If it didn't make the top 10 list, then why are you making such a big deal about it? And of course, then we actually read the two statements on homosexuality, and neither of them are actually about homosexuality. They're about actually kicking a man when he's down, about trying to gloat over a foe or someone that you're trying to assert your dominance over. Is the way that the verbs and the nouns actually work in harmony. So let's look at the.
You even wiped out. Well, but you also even wiped out the Lot story that they beat people to death with. I
know.
Yeah. So that was another insight.
Right. There is no sexuality in the Sodom and Gomorrah story. So a sodomite. Sorry, folks, but it's not a sexual reference. Yeah, that whole story is so fascinating for what it was that they were actually rebelling against, and what it leads to, of course, is the creation of Moab. So it's the society of Sodom that was, we don't give a crap what God thinks. We want to give God some lip. We want to tell him what we want. We're going to tell him why we want it this way. We're going to create our own way, and they have no interest of listening to what God has to say. That's the story of Sodom, and so that's why it is important, for us to actually read what the words say, because there is some sex in the post-Sodom era, because Lot's daughters,
that's just plain wrong.
Get daddy drunk, and they give way to, of all people, Moab, which was the reason we were studying the story, because we wanted to understand the modern incarnation of Moab and what it represents. Who's your daddy is a loose translation of Moab. Okay, so this is what was not on the list. It is not the spirit of faith. Well, that's a blow to religion, isn't it? Because faith is irrelevant. Yeah, the Spirit is not giving you any faith. It's not the spirit of compromise, because God doesn't. It's not the spirit of prayer, because we benefit from listening. Now, in that regard, I've had a reason to read more and more about rabbinical Judaism, and one of the things that I added to a chapter is salvation. And if you read Judaism 101 or any Jewish site, they'll say there is no concept of salvation in Judaism because Jews don't think they need to be saved. And then the way that a Jew achieves the desired outcome is to pray and do good deeds. Now, where do you find that instruction in the Torah? Because there is not a single time in the entirety of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms that God once tells us to pray, ever.
Yeah, that's correct.
And God's really clear that good deeds won't get you anywhere. It's about being right, not good. That's the whole story. If you want to understand the difference between Shaul and Dowd, Shaul was good. Dowd was right.
Right.
One of those dudes is in Sheol, hell, and the other one is in Shamayim, heaven. It's not about being good. Yeah. So prayer. Spirit of prayer is not mentioned because we benefit from listening. The spirit of being good, because being right matters, doesn't speak of the spirit of obedience, because the goal is liberation. There is no mention of a spirit of worship, because we're family. There's no mention of a spirit of fear, because it's a loving relationship. There is no reference to a spirit of charity, because work is a virtue. There's no spirit of meekness, because we're called to be bold. There's no spirit of a pure heart, because it's our thoughts that matter. There's no spirit of healing, because our physical bodies are irrelevant. Boy, you've come to know that, haven't you, Kirk?
Yes, sir.
Our physical bodies are irrelevant, especially where we're going. This is not the spirit of miracles, because God doesn't show off. That's quite a list of things that weren't mentioned there, and why they weren't mentioned. And I'm sure you could double that, triple, quadruple that list.
Yes. That's a good start, man.
Yeah.
That's a good start. Wow.
Yahweh has made it abundantly clear that the Towrah is not a prophet. Boy, am I ever glad that the Towrah is not a prophet.
We already have 40. We don't need 41.
Well, first of all, the role of a prophet. The role of a prophet is no piece of cake. But there are a lot of people that claim to be prophets, and if you're a prophet speaking for Yahweh, it's real simple. You have to be right 100% of the time about everything you say, past, present, and future. And if you're wrong once, you die.
Stone you.
Yeah, so don't ever claim to have
up.
received prophecy. Now, it's an entirely different story to say, wait a minute, from in the beginning to the last words of Malachi, Yahweh has been made prophetic pronouncements, and within those prophetic pronouncements, he has conveyed a story to us that is edifying, that's enriching, where he is striving to teach us and guide us. And it's one thing to say, I'm going to share what he said and analyze what he said and dissect what he said so that we can comprehend it and apply it to our lives. And that, I think, is a lot more fun, a lot more engaging than is being a recorder for Yahweh.
Yeah, I think so too.
And if I had the choice between Yahweh saying, for example, to Yahshua, this is Yahweh speaking. Additionally, by accepting the offer and responding appropriately, he will be perceptive with regard to developing a profound admiration and respect for Yahweh. Now, God saying that to Yahshua, that's pretty cool. I would much rather read what Yahweh said to Yahshua and then look at each of those words and deduce how that applies to our lives. That what does that tell us about the nature of the relationship God is establishing and how we can go about capitalizing upon it? I think that is far more challenging and fun and invigorating than simply being a person through whom God speaks. But nonetheless, the Towrah didn't get to choose. He has specifically said he ain't a prophet, and that's what we're going to read. That God says by accepting the offer. So again, the Towrah and all of us can be stems off this, grafted into this main branch of the tree. It's God offers this to all of us. It's a matter of accepting the offer. If we accept the offer and we respond appropriately, we will be perceptive. If we show a willingness to accept, we're going to have a nose for the truth, a capacity to distinguish right from wrong, a willingness to reply, providing answers with regard to developing a profound admiration and respect for Yahweh. Yahweh is a brilliant teacher. He's an engaging orator. He's a very likable individual. He's stimulating to be around. And he is exceedingly generous. Therefore, it will not be, so this individual is going to develop a respect for Yahweh by being perceptive, as opposed to, therefore, it will not be by an appearance or vision. Or he's not going to be a prophet. It's not going to be through the visual form which can be seen or any spiritual revelation, any miraculous vision. That's not how this is going to happen. You know, how many of these dunderheads, like that guy that had that mega church in South Korea that was the epicenter of COVID early on, where he claims that he claims that he is the Messiah. So somewhere along the way, he forgot to read the part where Dowd is the Messiah, but nonetheless, he claims that he is the Messiah, and that he knows that because God told him so. One of his dreams. Got to be really careful. The moment you make that claim and you're wrong, you're dead. Now, this fellow, he's going to be lucky to die, because I don't think that's what's going to happen to him. Therefore, it will not be by an appearance or a vision seen with his eyes that he's going to decide. God's not going to appear like he appeared the 6 times previously, you know, meeting with Dowd, meeting with Shamuel, meeting with Yishak, meeting with Abraham, with Moshe. He is not going to do that. There's no reason for him to do that. God is knowable, viewable, relatable through his words.
He wants to be.
Right. And, you know, you're an artist, Kirk, and JB as a programmer. Words are exceedingly powerful. And so we have come to know that words tell a story. They paint a picture. They communicate a message. They teach us what we need to know. Words are exceedingly powerful. And if we develop a love of words, we can see God even more clearly than the Israelites did during the Exodus. We can see him and appreciate him far more than the Israelites in Yehudim who make it to Sukkah and Yom Kippurim in year 6,000 Yah, 2033. We will see him. We see him now through his words, even more clearly than the visual impression will be. Right.
You really have it all now.
Right. Dazzling and beautiful, but I'd rather know rather than just see dazzling and beautiful. I'm sure that when Yahshua was invited into the throne room of heaven and saw the brilliance of what things are like in 7th dimension, I'm sure it was inspiring and beautiful. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be there? But in terms of just learning who God is, what he's offering, what he is expecting in return, what he's trying to say to his people, these words are far more empowering. They're far more effective. So it will not be with his eyes that he will decide. Therefore, it's not by an appearance, not with his eyes that he will decide. Also, it will not be by hearsay, heard with his ears, that he will make judgments or prove his arguments. Now, I've had God speak to me. I've listened to God speak. Those brief messages, one was really fun, and one was, no, I think you got the wrong number here. I know what you're looking for, but I ain't your God. I ain't your guy. And the other was poking fun of, ha, ha, ha. Where do you think you're going? I've heard Yah's voice, but there is nothing in the conversation with Yahweh that has any influence on what we're sharing, what we're teaching, what we've come to know, what we're able to convey that is meaningful in everyone else's lives. All of those things were just a moment of I've got a job. I'd like you to do this job, and based upon you doing this job, then we can go and do something else. But for example, being asked to expose and condemn Islam, it turned out to be helpful to me, and it's an essential part of doing the job. You have to understand how Satan operates in religion and why religions are so counterproductive to be able to do this job. So it was important for that preparation, and it was important to be an effective witness. You have to be able to expose and condemn religion. But what the message that we're conveying it based upon what Yahweh teaches. So it will not be by hearsay heard with his ears that he will make judgments or prove his arguments. No, we're going to prove the arguments and make judgments based upon what Yahweh has conveyed in writing through his Torah and prophets. He will exercise good judgment by seeking to be accurate, honest, and forthright with regard to opening the doorway for the discerning. Shafat is the word for judgment. It means to decide. To try to discern between right and wrong, good and bad, truth and fiction. Exercise good judgment. It is the antithesis of political correctness. The moment we lose the ability to be judgmental, we lose the ability to be moral, to be civil, to be compassionate, to be loving, to be right. That's the greatest crime of this society, and promoting the whole idea of political correctness and not being judgmental. Being judgmental is the essence of everything. We squander the gift of free will if we're not judgmental. By seeking to be accurate, honest, and forthright. One of the things that this is Sadak. And Dowd was Sadak. One of the things we've really striven to do in the translations is to be accurate, to say this is what the word means. This is the root. These are the way the letters were written. This is how it's used in context. This is what the word means. And here's the word. You can look it up yourself. And then to be forthright when a word or a particular translation is one of a number of different options, we'll present both options. Or we'll write a couple of paragraphs and say, the reason that we chose this particular option is XYZ. We thought it through, and in this context, based upon the use of the word over here, this seems to be the most logical way to present this. And that there are still several, and you're invited to contemplate the validity of each of them yourselves. That is a very unique approach. As is the approach of saying, all right, we're now in the midst of another edit pass. Observations 3,000 pages. It's being reformatted and rewritten based upon what we've learned. We can't be so proud of ourselves or
dogmatic. Yeah.
Dogmatic. We're going to say, everything we've written from the beginning is precisely accurate. No, we have come just recently to have this full appreciation of how Dowd is the centerpiece, the cornerstone of Yah's plan, the embodiment of the covenant, the Messiah, the Son of God. And so it's important that we go back through and while we can't start there with the first page of the first book and tell somebody, oh, by the way, the Son of God is Dowd, not Yosha, and the Messiah is Dowd, not Yosha. We can't start there because people have to grow and have the foundation built before they're even in a position to appreciate how that could be so. But we ought not say anything that is counter to that. So we can't just start with full knowledge. We have to build a base. We have to go back from time to time and say, yeah, I know there was this tendency to think this, that, and the other thing about Yosha, and it's just not so. It's sometimes it's even subtle. Like there are aspects of Yosha's life that convey sonship, and even though he never claimed to be the Son of God and claimed instead to be the Son of Man, and his birth was ordinary and natural, and there's no indication God ever called him his son, he was about his Father's business. In the sense of our Heavenly Father is Yosha's father as much as he is Dowd's father, as much as he is our father. And so he was about his Father's business. And so, the dress rehearsal for with Abraham and Ishak for what would happen 40 Yobel later on Mount Moriah. That is a father and son enacting the role of a father and son. But clearly, Dowd is Yahweh's firstborn, and Dowd is the son of God. And God makes it very clear that that is the case. So anyway, there are things along the way that we want to be right about, even if we don't begin with full knowledge at the beginning. And Yahweh doesn't either. He starts the story in the pristine garden and doesn't tell us a lot about it because we wouldn't even have an ability to appreciate it. And then we gradually build on that. Like the first covenant presentation is aboard the ark, where there's no terms and conditions unless you're really very observant and you see, oh, wow, well, there's lots of subtleties here about there are 3 doors on the ark, and that Yahweh had multiples of the sacrificial animals, obviously for a purpose, and 8 souls above aboard the ark. That's the number of infinity, and that Noah was spared because he listened to what Yahweh had to say and acted upon it. So, you can find these insights along with, well, the rainbow was the sign of the covenant. Well, the rainbow is comprised of 7 primary colors. And green is the one, and then growth is the one in the middle of them. And each of those colors has a specific insight, symbolic of something that's important to Yah, and everything that Yah says is about 6 + 1 = 7. So you can find them, but it's a simple presentation. And then the presentation with Abraham is 7 meetings, 5 terms and conditions, 5 benefits. So it is important to exercise good judgment and to seek to be accurate, honest, and forthright. And all of this should be designed to open the doorway for the discerning. We're not trying to open the doorway for everybody. This is not throw open the door and everybody's invited. No. We're opening the door for those people who are discerning, for those who are willing to think about these things. Then it says, he will provide proof using sound arguments. Yakach. He will use evidence and reason to decide, to judge, and correct, engaging in dialogue to resolve disputes, being both accusatory and condemning, as well as vindicating when appropriate. We ought not be uncomfortable with condemning popes.
No.
Politicians. We really ought not be. We ought to say that Paul, Muhammad, Akiba, the Rambam, Maimonides, Hadrian, that these were scallywags that God despises and are most certainly going to spend eternity in hell. We ought to say that with confidence. So, proof using sound arguments, with everything out and the open, doing so fairly. the reason I like the format that we have used from the beginning in terms of these translations. Put in bold the primary meaning of the word as it flows in the sentence, and then put the Hebrew word there in its generic form, so your cards are right on the table, go look it up. If you're online, you can just copy and paste it into a search engine. And then amplify it, and then take the time to write about it, to say, all right, this word is based on this root, it's used in this context, and it's telling us that there is a specific approach that we ought to take to knowing God. So this is yakah. We use evidence and reason to decide, to judge, and to correct, engaging in dialogue to resolve disputes while also being critical, accusatory, and condemning, making the case to vindicate or convict. This is a far cry from judge not, or lest you be judged, isn't it?
What stuff that is.
Yes, yeah. It's judge, so that there will be other people who will not be judged.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
With everything out in the open and doing so fairly, I think we've done as good a job of that as anyone that's tackled this material. Taking the time to say, here's the words, you look them up.
Well, you even tell everybody how to look them up.
Yes.
I mean, you have a game plan, and JB has it all over his site, with helpful notes and go here, go here, go here, go here. I mean, are you kidding? Nobody does that.
Yeah, and
they sell their own books.
But we're trying to do that to equip everyone who is reading to be independent, to be self-reliant, to be assured, to be able to hold us accountable. If, for example, if we publish something and we say, this is the word, this is the definition, this is what we think it means, but there are these alternatives that you can consider, and should the alternative be right and our conclusion be wrong, the very fact that we've presented the alternative and walked people through our decision process, then even if we're wrong, we're providing a valuable service. Yeah, valuable service. And I think it's particularly, like, one of the things that I happen to love is the fact that JB and I disagree on the one day question mark on the observance of when do you have the Pesach meal versus when does Pesach and matzah begin? And is matzah 7 days just for matzah, or is it 7 days including Pesach? And the fact that we disagree is what I like the most, because I respect the reasons he's come up with his conclusion. I think he respects the reason I've come up with mine. And what we both recognize, it's answering the invitation and appreciating the purpose of Pesach, which is eternal life, and matzah, which we celebrate with Pesach, so that while we're gaining eternal life, we're also perfected, so that eternal life will be with Yah, not in the other place, all leading to Bokurim, where we're adopted into Yahweh's home. And so the fact that our timing could be 1 day different is irrelevant in the whole picture, other than it's relevant because what it says is we're not dogmatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're open to the possibility that there's numbers of ways to interpret this, and that's a good thing, because God's not being dictatorial. He's saying, I'm going to provide you information, but I'm not going to just spoon feed you. I want you to think about it. And what fun would eternity be if we all thought exactly alike?
Yeah.
What fun would a discussion be if each of us offered exactly the same thing? It'd be like going into the Grand Canyon and hearing your echo. That's fun for about 30 seconds. And I said, okay, I got enough of that. So it's important to have everything out in the open, doing so fairly, on behalf of the sincere who are seeking straightforward answers. We're not trying to save the religious. We aren't. Not trying to save the political. A lot of times, particularly back in the day where I was connected politically and knew these religious leaders and political leaders, always said, boy, if you could get to so-and-so, can you imagine how effective they would be with their audience if they were conveying the truth? I said, no, they would lose their audience. No, why would I do that? Why would I do that? We're not trying to build a big audience. This isn't with the person with the number of followers wins. We'd like to have 0 followers and a large family. But in a family, there are really no leaders in a family other than mom and dad. And the roles of mom and dad are already taken. So,
this isn't a classroom with a teacher and students. We're all just a bunch of students that got together for a study group.
Yes, and we're students that are brothers and sisters, and the teacher is our Heavenly Father and spiritual mother. Those roles are already taken. There's actually one person who has a degree of hierarchy because it's just God's nature. He likes to engage working through people, and he found a guy that he likes to work through. And so it is fair to say that there is one brother among us that has preferred and preferential status.
He's the teacher's ace.
He's the teacher's ace. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is the teacher's pet. He's the Einstein of the class. It's Dowd.
Starts with
when we sing songs, it's going to be we're going to sing Dowd's lyrics. That's just the way it is. Now, he may not be a very good artist, and Kirk, you may be able to do that, and JB, you may be able to program a whole lot better than he does. I'm not sure I'm going to bring anything to the table, but nonetheless, Dowd does have status. Otherwise, we're family, and it's homeschooling. And we have really, yeah.
Do you reckon in Sukkah that as they're raising children, they might, I could go around and teach some art classes. What do you think?
Yes, you could. Absolutely.
Given all of eternity, I may finally learn how to draw.
Yeah, okay, I could do it.
I may learn how to sing. Yeah. And one of the advantages of learning how to draw is understanding symmetry and perspective and light.
Mm-hmm. All that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Good.
Perspective is really important. The way the place that we view things from. Now, changing our perspective about Yahowah and his testimony is fundamental to being part of his family. It's fundamental to doing a program like this. Fundamental to writing about him. Fundamental to translation is our perspective. Perspective is a huge aspect of drawing. Yahweh is light. His words are written in a language that's composed very much like light, and light is essential to understanding how to draw. So the use of color, all of it is that's an important part of doing this. And clearly Yahweh likes singing and song and lyrics. And JB, when it comes to technology, programming is really important. I think that life is a three-dimensional program. It's a computer program in DNA that's actually a three-dimensional code. Very powerful code, and it's artificial intelligence in the sense that this code is capable of adapting. And it's marvelous the way our brains work, and we do this. But I think he literally programmed life into existence. And if you're a math whiz, you realize that creation was a complex variable equation.
Yeah.
So I think it's extraordinary things we're going to be able to see and do. I know that the number one thing I'm looking forward to, and this is a very odd thing, but I'm looking forward to being just one of the kids. I'm looking forward to just hanging in the background and soaking it all up, and then going out on some exploratory journey based upon what we have learned with my pals, and say, okay, we're going to apply some of this. Let's just go off and explore over that away. And I just think it's going to be grand.
I think so too.
Yeah, so
Wow.
Right, everything out in the open on behalf of the sincere who are looking for straightforward answers of the land. The fact that it ends here with "of the land," and we're not at the end of the discussion of Choderdom, and actually the discussion of the Choder actually goes well into the 12th chapter of Yahshua. So you can tell that both Dowd and Yahshua were real concerned about the inadequacy of this
group.
This group.
and you in particular.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had a lot of concern about he said, okay.
Look who he
You're
hangs
kidding
out
me,
with,
right?
too, by the way.
You're kidding me. All right, so we ought to come up with a plan here. You almost see. All get together and say, all right, this is really, really, really pathetic. Okay, but this is what God wants. Okay, so God, you're gonna take your point of, all right, you can use the least qualified implement to do the most magnificent thing.
Well,
you're really going to take this one to an extreme this time.
Well, now, wait a minute. You know, that contradicts what you said earlier, that he don't show off.
What's that? Oh, yeah, well, he's actually, he is kind of showing off, isn't he?
Look what I can do with this.
Look what I can do. Yeah. That's funny. Oh, wow. So what this is basically saying is the Choder will wield the words of God on behalf of those seeking answers. He's going to do so accurately and honestly. His assessments from his conclusions to his insights will be presented in a straightforward manner. His arguments on behalf of Yah will be sound. They're going to be based upon evidence and reason. But more than anything, his presentation of Yahweh's word will be consistent with the standard God has established. Every thought-provoking statement will lead to the same place, striving for the same result, directing our attention to the doorway that Yahweh has provided, such that it is opened for those who have been deprived of life. We began by this program by trying to explain why these words were here. And remember what I said, that Yahshua was taken to Shamayim. He's in heaven. He is this astonishingly devoted and effective prophet for Yahweh, and yet not a single person during his lifetime responded to what he had to say and was seeking admittance into heaven's door. And Yahweh consoled him by saying, it's just a matter of time. There are going to be lots of people outside that doorway. You just got to give it some time. And now he gets to write that the sincere who are seeking straightforward answers of the land are going to find that the doorway will be open for the discerning, that he will use good judgment, seeking to be accurate, honest, and forthright with regard to opening the doorway for the discerning. That doorway that was opened and there was no one there now is opened for the discerning. This is God's answer to console this extraordinary prophet. And then Yahshua said, okay, God, I get it, I appreciate that. Now we need to go to work. This is not going to... We understand what you're going to try to do, but let's help this poor sucker out, and I do mean sucker.
Poor sucker, huh? Very good.
Yes. So, yeah. So this isn't only about life. The Choder will be deployed to do as Dowd has done, although he is the Gabora of Dowd's Gabor. He will be aggressively open and exposing and condemning those who are contrary to Dowd's statements to Yahweh, to Yehudim. For those opening to listening to the words of Yah, his oratory will bring life. For those who are opposed, it will bring death. In fact, the next statement, and this is maybe a good place for us to pause and bring this up next week. This is the part that I did not get. I will tell you that when I first translated this about 3 years ago for observations we're now reading out of Coming Home, that when I first read this or translated this, you know how all these words have sort of a range of meanings, and if you're reading something that you just can't deal with, and it says that the words are going to kill. And you're realizing, okay, God's trying to empower this choder to be effective to call his people home, and then you read that his words are going to have the power of life and death. Well, it's Yahweh's words, of course, and inspired by the Spirit. But you read that and you're saying, no. We got to find another definition here for Muth that is going to work, because I ain't writing that. And so you go through and you find, okay, I can legitimately say this to tone it down. And now, since that time, we've had to deal with the prophecies about the Nachri as Solomon spoke it, and so many others, like now Proverbs 14 on Chodering 101, that after a while you finally get to the point where, like I reread Psalm 91, and Psalm 91 makes it really clear that the beneficiary of Psalm 91 is going to be around during the worst of the time of Jacob's troubles. And so when you read this from that perspective now, I think we're doing a disservice to Yah if we decide, well, just because this is uncomfortable, I'm not going to go where the words lead. We've been going to where the words have led us now for 20 years. This is
can't stop.
Yeah. Just because they're really uncomfortable doesn't mean we ought to stop now. And so we're going to share the words at face value next week. They may make some people uncomfortable. They make me uncomfortable, so I don't blame you. But nonetheless, we're going to say this is what God had to say. And finally, I've come to this point, as uncomfortable as I am with this, because I really like being anonymous and sharing this with the family and saying I'm irrelevant. This is what the words are. It's about what the words say that's relevant. That's not God's view.
No, this is a big deal to him.
Yeah, it's a big deal to him. He made a promise to Abraham. He's going to honor that promise, and he always works through people. His people were unwilling to do any of this. So Yahweh needed someone who was willing to do it, no matter how much of a sucker this guy was. He needed somebody who was willing to do it. No matter how flawed they were, he was going to empower them with the Spirit to search his words and get this done. It was important enough to Yah that he had a lot to say about it, not because he wants to honor this individual. That is not the point. He wants his people to do what they have never done. Listen to a goyim. And he wants them to listen to a goyim because there was none of his people that were willing to do this job.
By default. Yeah, it was
by default. And so you need to listen, you need to respond. And if it wasn't important for God to add that credibility to this, instruction to this, that guidance to this, he wouldn't have said it. It wouldn't have been in so many different prophecies. But it is. And so we would be doing a disservice to Yahweh's intent if we didn't at least share it the way he wrote it.
Yeah.
So this is where we'll pick it up next week. So it sounds like, JB, your house did not blow down.
No, it kind of blew through. It came in hard and left just as fast, though.
Wow. Almost sounds like there was hail in that.
No, it was just rain, as far as I can tell.
Really? Wow, that's strong rain.
Wow. Yep, pretty amazing. We do get our 15 minutes of rain here every single day. It pours for about 15 minutes, and then it just goes away, and it's brilliant and sunny, and every day is like that. It rains 15 minutes every day, so it's kind of like having sprinklers, but without having sprinklers.
Yeah, sprinklers. Yeah. Does it do it about the same time each day?
No, it's all different. Although there is a early morning, seems, if there was a one time where you're more likely to get than the other, I'd say it'd be early morning. But no, it can rain at any time. It just comes through, and if you realize that north of here, after you pass St. John's and Tortola of the British Virgin, the next thing due north of here would be the North Pole. And it's just nothing but ocean all the way north of here.
Wow.
And if you go west from here, you're 1,000 miles to this would be south of Florida, but you'd go right into the Gulf of Mexico if you go due west. If you go due east of here, you're going to hit Africa, but it's a long way to Africa. And if you go due south of here, you're going to Argentina. Top of Argentina. Not Argentina. Venezuela. What am I saying? Venezuela. Yeah, so it'd be the top of Venezuela. And so this is just sitting out in the middle of the ocean. This little chain of islands that go all the way from beginning in the Bahamas, and they go all the way down past Grenada to Venezuela. And so we are surrounded by sea. And so the only reason that it rains here is that this is really a mountain of an island. And when the winds always blow off the east, they first, and it's warm air, and it's forced up the far eastern side of the mountain. Then it cools, and as it blows further east, the cooler air holds less water vapor, and it falls on the island. So it's just a phenomenon each day. There's a time each day that those conditions are right, and we get some clouds, and it rains. Yeah. So it's really kind of a perfect environment. But we, so far, JB, have not had a violent storm. We'll see what happens in hurricane season. One of the neat things about Psalm 91, it actually says that Yah is providing a safe harbor. And so I'm going to hold him to that. I can tell you that when my boat was about to be blown to smithereens by Dorian. Dorian, the eye of Dorian, which was a Cat 5, was coming right at Fort Lauderdale. And as a Cat 5 over Fort Lauderdale, my boat would have been destroyed. And yet here about, 100 miles due east of Fort Lauderdale, the storm did something that no other hurricane has ever done. Yeah. It's making a beeline for Fort Lauderdale, building up to a Cat 5, and then it stalls and takes a 90-degree turn and goes due north.
Due north, yeah.
And we got some strong breezes, and that was it. Yeah. So I'm expecting, based upon Psalm 91, it said safe harbor. So long as you're engaged doing what Yahweh wants, there's not a lot of people doing it, and so Yahweh says, I'll provide a safe harbor for you.
Where's Psalm 91? What book is Psalm 91 in?
It is.
I will send it to you because I recently edited it
for
observation. Observations in the new format, which is Times New Roman 12 font with the same with a paginated for a 6x9 book with 1 inch surrounding margins went from 2 volumes to 5 volumes. So it's a much longer. I will send you it. We hope to have it all posted and all printed. We're excited about getting it printed. What we're trying to do is to take everything to a new theme. Leah came up with this a theme which has always been my favorite way to present everything. Everything I've done in my whole life in marketing, the background has always been white. And I set blue and gold print and accents on a white background for everything I've ever done for product presentation. And she came up with this white background with blue and gold lettering and accents. And that is the format that we're using for everything. So every site is going to be very clean. They're all part of the Yada Yahweh family. And so it's Yada Yahweh observations, Yada Yahweh coming home, Yada Yahweh an introduction to God. It's all part of the same family, exactly the same look. And we want our online presentation and the books to all be part of the same family. So there's a consistency.
Connection.
And a connection.
Absolutely.
So they're all part of the same family, all connected and all consistent in their style all the way through. And so that is the project that we're on now. It's I've stopped adding to the books so that I could go back and improve the books. And we've got a big team working on this. In fact, I got a letter from J.K. the other day. J.K. is one of the 3 most diligent editors. Jackie is the queen of editors. She is just so unbelievably. And she is actually with Leah taking over the printing process of this.
Really?
She's the big sister of the covenant. She's a big sister of the covenant family, and and Leah's working with me to make the books more effective with a Hebrew audience. So we're really working on observations to make it more effective on a Hebrew audience, because I, of course, knew what was wrong about Christianity far more than I knew what was wrong about Judaism. So when I was seeing Yahweh say something, and Yahweh, makes public enemy number 1, Shaul, Paul. So there was a lot to say, but I'm making them a lot more a Hebrew focus for the audience. But it is, as J.K. was writing me, he says, I've just re-edited now Volume 1 of observations, and it is just so much more effective in the way that and hard hitting and bold, the way that it presents introduces this series of books. And for the first time, I've gotten to the point where we say, I think we can be, and I'm going to use this word cautiously, but I think that what we're doing, we can be proud of what we're doing. We're really creating JB, you've presented so many of these books now on your site, and the content is better, the presentation is better. There are so many profound insights in them. So we're very excited about what we're doing, and it's going to be a big project, because after observations, which is 3,000 pages, and getting coming home printed and posted, which is another 1,500, we're going to go back and I'm going to redo 5 volumes of Yada Yah. And then after doing 5 volumes of Yada Yah, I'm going to redo an introduction to God and redo Questioning Paul.
Especially with what you know now.
Yeah, all going to be consistent, and I think, I think everyone's going to enjoy it. In fact, for all of you who have read all of these books, I'll tell you what, going back and rereading them again, we're making enough changes and enhancement to them that it'll be a worthwhile journey to go back through them.
So you have
that's what we're doing.
Your material to read until 2028, right?
Have plenty of material to read, and of course, I can't wait because my favorite is just to press on. So it was. We can all blame Leah. She says, I feel uncomfortable with some of your earlier works because coming home is so much better than Observations, which is so much better
absolutely
than
right.
An Introduction to God, which is so much better than Yada Yah. You really ought to go back and improve those books.
Yes. Yeah.
Boy, talk about a strong Jewish woman. Yeah, you better have thick skin if you're going to do this. You're the woman that you brought into your home and that you love says, that's not very good. You really need to go and improve that. But guess what?
Thanks, baby.
I want to tell you, the fact is, she was right. She was right. I went as I was reading through it. I said, she's partially right. There was a lot of really good stuff, and still a lot of really good stuff in those books. Boys, are good stuff in those books. But they weren't even a fraction as good as they should have been, and we are making them a lot better. It's such that I think we'll all be very, very confident and comfortable, even a little bit proud of what we've created together, and the way that it represents Yahweh. I just don't think what we had before was Yah-worthy. And from a sucker point of view now, they are Yah-worthy.
Yeah.
They're so much better.
Well, thank you to all of y'all that are doing that. That's we appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Jackie, Molly, and J.K. are the big three editors, but we've got Dee and Mike actually very actively engaged in it, and it has been just a tremendous go forward. In fact, I even got a letter today from a fellow that had taken over the Bless Yahweh site for our.
Hello? Still there?
Did we lose you, Craig?
He may have cut off.
Well, it still shows him on the line. I think his phone might be fritzing.
Which one was the Bless Yahweh site? Is that the
that was
the
Richard's site?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know who took it over?
No, I didn't know someone had.
I know, I didn't either. I thought it was kind of locked down on where it stopped, when he passed away. So, well, that's good. But still,
I don't think Craig's coming back.
No, I don't think so either. So we'll just tell everybody Shabbat.